What if I told you that the most argued about couple from Love Island USA Season 7 wasn't the messiest breakup, the loudest fight, or even the Casa Amor disaster? It was the couple where the guy quietly chose a girl, stuck beside her, and the internet still lost its mind. Because today we're talking about Ace, Nicolandria, Nic Olandria, Taylor, Cierra, Huda, and the entire Love Island Season 7 universe, from the dating show Villa in Fiji to the TikTok comment sections that have turned Nic and Olandria into a full-time job. If you watched Love Island USA, if you followed the Love Island Huda drama, if you still have opinions about Cierra, Ace, Taylor, and whether Nicolandria is real or just PR, this story is for you. Before we dive in, do one tiny thing for me. Tap subscribe like you're voting for your favorite Love Island couple before the app crashes. It's free, it helps the channel more than you think, and it tells the algorithm you're officially Team Nic and Olandria. All right, let's rewind to where the Nicolandria saga actually started. When Love Island USA Season 7 started, nobody knew the word Nicolandria yet. Nic walked into the villa and ended up with Cierra. Olandria walked in and ended up with Taylor. On paper, it all made sense. Two good-looking couples, decent chemistry, typical dating show stuff. Nothing too wild. Yet. But this is Love Island, so you know things can't stay simple. Casa Amor shows up, the producers start pressing the chaos button, and suddenly you've got Nic feeling confused, Olandria trying to be loyal and unselfish, and a lot of moments that could have turned into something, but didn't, because both of them were trying not to be that person. The turning point everyone talks about is that infamous soul ties style kiss, the moment where you could literally see Nic and Olandria look at each other like, oh, this is different. From that point on, even when they weren't coupled, they weren't invisible anymore. Fans started clipping their scenes, rewatching background shots, zooming in on looks, making edits, and slowly building the Nicolandria storyline the show itself wasn't fully committing to yet. Then, everything flipped. Cierra was suddenly removed from the villa for things that happened off the show. Nic was still inside, trying to figure out what to do next. Taylor made his own choices, and for the first time, there was actually space for Nic and Olandria to explore what had been bubbling underneath the whole time. By the finale, they'd gone from are they just flirty friends to official couple, runner-up status, and the nickname Nicolandria plastered all over social media. But that was just the cute part. The real chaos didn't start until everyone left Fiji. Here's the thing about Love Island. You don't just watch the show, you watch the edit. You see what the producers want you to see, in the order they want you to see it, cut together with music that tells you how to feel. And Season 7 might be one of the clearest examples of that. On the show, we saw Huda having explosive moments, emotional reactions, and major arguments that turned her into a lightning rod. Cierra positioned as the girl Nic was closed off with right before she disappeared from the villa. Taylor and Olandria's connection that looked real until it suddenly really wasn't. Nic and Olandria's connection, which at first seemed like background energy, then suddenly became the romantic highlight of the last stretch of the season. Then, after the camera stopped rolling, ex-Islanders started giving interviews and doing TikToks. Suddenly, you hear things like, I got a villain edit. They staged parts of this storyline. That couple wasn't as romantic as you think at that time. Production pushed certain narratives about Cierra's exit, Huda's drama, and who they wanted the audience to root for. When viewers are hearing one version on TV and a different version on social media, confusion turns into frustration fast. Some people decided Nicolandrea was a fairy tale that the show underplayed. Others decided Nicolandrea was a PR couple, producer-made, or the fakest storyline ever, even though Nic and Olandria themselves kept saying, we know what we have. And that tension between what we saw and what we were told afterwards was the perfect fuel for online arguments. But the edit wasn't the only problem. The real emotional mess came from the people around them. Let's talk about the fan camps, because Season 7 didn't just produce couples, it produced teams. You had people who rode hard for Huda and felt like she'd carried the season. People who loved Cierra and Nic together and hated that it ended. People who thought Ace and Chelley, or Ace and other connections, deserved more shine. People who worshipped the core four and wanted that friend group to stay untouched. And of course, the Nicolandria hive, who only cared about Nic and Olandria. Now, normally, fans arguing is just part of reality TV culture. But this time, everything kept cross-contaminating. Huda's conflicts in the villa, Cierra's exit, Ace's interviews, Taylor's comments, reunion drama, it all ended up somehow pointing back to Olandria. For some Huda supporters, Olandria became the face of the other side of the story. If they felt Huda wasn't defended enough, they blamed everyone around her, including Olandria. For some Cierra fans, it genuinely hurt to watch Nic go from devastated about her leaving to smiling and laughing with Olandria less than a day later. That emotional whiplash made them feel like Cierra was just a placeholder, and they saw Nicolandria as the reward he got after breaking their fave's heart. For some people who supported other couples or wanted different winners, it felt like Nic and Olandria stole spotlight, brand deals, and opportunities their faves should have gotten. That turned into resentment, not at the brands or the show, but at Olandria specifically, because she became the most visible face of all of it. Before we go deeper into that, quick break. If you're still watching this and you haven't clicked away to watch a Nicolandria edit yet, hit subscribe real quick like you're pressing that vote button before Ari reads the dumping text. It literally takes 1 second and lets me keep dropping long videos about Love Island chaos for you. Okay. Let's talk about the post-villa content that poured gasoline on everything. One reason this season never seems to end is because everyone keeps talking. Cierra starts posting TikToks and telling her side of the story. She admits she was really hurt. She says that when she left, she thought she and Nic were solid, and it felt brutal to learn through TV and social media that he'd moved on so fast with a girl who was also her friend. She also shared that neither Nic nor Olandria reached out afterwards, which for her made the friendship and relationship feel like they never existed. On the other side, you've got interviews where Nic and Olandria explain their own perspective. They talk about how their connection took time, how they didn't fully realize what they had until late in the game, and how they hate that people think everything was scripted, because for them it wasn't. They talk about going at their own pace, seeing each other's families, and just trying to live a normal life while the internet debates if they're real. Then you add Adis's interviews and comments into the mix, whether it's mentioning other couples, giving opinions on who was real or fake, or just saying things that make old wounds feel fresh again. Every clip gets pulled apart, every side-eye becomes evidence, every sentence becomes a new round of discourse. And through all of this, the reunion special and other coverage highlight the broader issue: bullying, pile-ons, and the way people talk to and about these cast members online. Even people who don't like Huda, Cierra, or Olandria are starting to say, okay, this is getting out of hand. But if everyone knows it's too much, why does it keep happening? Here's where we get a little psychological. First, Olandria's post-show success is very visible. She's doing campaigns, interviews, collabs, and features. Her relationship with Nic is still going, quietly and steadily. She's not on live every day starting fights, she's just working and living. For some people, that's inspiring. For others, it quietly annoys them, especially if they were never rooting for her in the first place. Second, fans project their own experiences. If you've ever felt like the friend who got left behind, the way Cierra describes feeling, it's easy to see Nicolandria as a trigger instead of just a couple from a dating show. If you've ever felt misunderstood, like Huda says she was, you might see Olandria as part of the other side, even if she hasn't personally attacked anyone. Third, shipping wars operate on pure competition. In shipping culture, it's rarely,
I love this couple and I hope everyone's happy. It usually becomes my ship versus your ship, my fave versus your fave, my girl deserved these brand deals, not that girl. When Nicolandria became the couple people associated with Season 7, everyone who wanted a different ending suddenly had a new target.
So you get this weird situation where people who never met Olandria feel personally offended by her success. Every ad she does, every trip she takes with Nick, every Instagram story gets treated as a public vote against somebody else's faith. Comment sections stop talking about the show and start talking about her as if she's not a real person, reading it on her phone at 2 a.m. And that's the part we don't like to admit. A lot of the hate doesn't come from what actually happened in Fiji. It comes from how people feel about themselves and their own favorite characters.
If you've ever wandered into a Nicolandria fan page or hashtag, you already know. Those fans are intense. They're clipping every scene. They're posting edits. They're tracking brand deals, views, follower milestones, and every time Nick publicly compliments Olandria, they'll remind you how he has called her smart and beautiful, how he keeps supporting her, and how they both thank the Nicolandria Hive for riding so hard for them. From their point of view, they're not just being extra, they're trying to balance the scales. If they wake up and see threads full of people calling her names, questioning her character, or assuming the worst about every move she makes, it feels natural for them to become her defenders.
That's how you end up with haters posting long rants about Nicolandria, Nicolandria fans clapping back in the replies, other fandoms jumping in, and suddenly a random brand deal photo becomes a mini-war. At the same time, even Olandria herself has reportedly said in interviews that she doesn't condone hate in her name and doesn't want people using her as a reason to attack others. But here's the internet problem. Once a fandom decides they're at war, it's very hard to get everyone to stand down. Before we get into the bigger picture, last quick reminder. If you're this deep into the video, hit subscribe like you're trying to sneak a text vote in before Ari announces the dumping. If you've made it this far, you clearly love overanalyzing Love Island just as much as I do.
Season 7 of Love Island USA has already been called a new level of toxic fandom. Not because the show itself was that different, the format is the same, but because social media is louder, faster, and more obsessive than ever. Think about it. You've got Reddit threads breaking down every expression, TikToks with millions of views explaining who was real and who was fake, Twitter threads timing out the exact hours between Cierra leaving and Nick smiling with Olandria again, entire fan pages built just to either support or drag people they've never met. In the middle of all that, you have Nick and Olandria trying to do normal couple things. Travel, see family, work with brands, decide how public or private they want to be.
You also have Cierra trying to process a breakup and a sudden exit under a microscope. Huda dealing with intense criticism to the point where even her ex is like, okay, this is getting too far. Ace, Taylor, and others still having to answer questions about things that happened in a villa months ago instead of moving on. And somewhere in all that noise, it's easy to forget that this all started as a dating show where people were supposed to flirt in swimsuits, not become permanent characters in a never-ending battle between fan bases.
When you strip away the edits, the production choices, and the interviews, the core reasons a lot of people are mad at Olandria boiled down to a few simple things. She became the breakout star some people wanted their fave to be. The brand deals, the collabs, the interviews with Nick, the sold-out lip kit, the features. For some viewers, that success feels like proof she won, even if she technically finished second on the show. Nick chose her and kept choosing her. If you were attached to Nick with Cierra, Nick with someone else, or even just Nick single, watching him commit to Olandria and stick with her outside the villa can feel like a loss. Not for them, but for you and your preferred storyline.
She doesn't play into constant online drama. She's not always on live arguing. She's not dropping messy comments every day.
For some people, that makes her seem calm and grounded. For others, it makes them project all sorts of motives onto her silence. She represents a story people can't control. Fans love feeling like they scripted the show through voting and commentary. Nicolandria is a couple that developed partly off camera, in ways producers and fans didn't fully control. That alone can make people weirdly angry. When you put all of that together, it's not shocking that she gets so much love and so much hate at the same time. She's become a symbol, not just a person.
At the end of the day, here's what we know. Nic and Olandria, Nicolandria, left Love Island USA Season 7 as runners-up and continued their relationship in the real world. Cierra, Huda, Ace, Taylor, Chelley, and the rest of the cast all walked away with their own scars, stories, and fan bases. The fandom around this season has done a lot of good, edits, jokes, community, but it's also crossed the line into harassment more than once. You don't have to like Nicolandria. You don't have to ship Nic and Olandria. You don't have to agree with every choice any of them made in Fiji or afterwards. But if a dating show makes you so angry that you forget there are real people behind your screen, that's not about them anymore. That's about what the internet is turning all of us into. So the next time you see a Nicolandria edit, a Cierra TikTok, an Ace interview, or another Love Island headline, ask yourself a simple question. Is what I'm about to type something I'd actually say to this person's face? If the answer is no, maybe we all need to step back from the villa a little bit. Thanks for watching. Thanks for overanalyzing Season 7 with me. And if you made it this far, hit subscribe like you're stealing 30 seconds with your favorite islander before the final dumping. I'll see you in the next video, hopefully with less hate and more actual love in Love Island.